Well, welcome aboard. I'm really happy to have you here today. And most of you know who I am. I'm Dr. Richard Nanyard. I'm the Executive Director of the ICBCH and subliminalscience.com. But we are here today in our online learning center with a very special guest, and that is John Soriano. And John is both an ICBCH member and he is an expert in E.F.T. And we're going to be spending some time with John today learning basic strategies of E.F.T. and how you can use these to help not only your clients experience a better life, but you as well. And so you can even clap even though you're watching video. And welcome, John.
Thank you.
John, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became interested in E.F.T. and what your background is?
Sure. I got involved with E.F.T. in 2006, and it was actually accidental. I was taking a educational academic coaching course, and the E.F.T. was actually part of that course because the author of that course used that to help students get over what he calls small t school-related traumas, especially for students that were dealing with learning disabilities, things like that. School tends to become painful and traumatic to them. So he would use E.F.T. to do that. Now, the funny thing is, when I first saw that in the course, I looked at it and said, really? By doing this kind of stuff, I'm going to feel better? No. So I actually pushed it all the way to the end and put it off. But finally, the complete training, I had to deal with it.
Right.
And I said, okay, so I'll take a shot at it. And the rest, as they say, is history. Because once I started working with it and started actually feeling shifts of cognition and shifts of energy, all of a sudden I was like, well, wait a minute, this actually might have some merit to it. And I was familiar with acupressure, acupuncture points from a martial arts background. So the concept wasn't foreign to me, but being able to use it in the context that they were teaching it to be used, that was interesting.
Sure.
So one thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was training in that almost exclusively and getting basic completions and then advanced completions and things like that, because at that time there was no certification.
Right.
And then I've been using it ever since.
You know, that sort of parallels my experience with E.F.T. It was probably about 2002, 2003, and I was out doing training, and other therapists would ask me about E.F.T. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And so I had to go learn about E.F.T. And so my first thought, so I could answer the question, and my first thought was, well, this isn't real. This isn't going to help anybody. And so I secretly started using E.F.T. techniques with some of the clients who I was working with, really in traditional counseling, traditional therapy. And a lot of them were students as well. And what I found was that they had remarkable results, that they experienced both temporarily and in the long term resolution of their traumas. And for me, it was a great it was my own freedom to be free as a traditionally trained therapist, go back and find the source of the trauma and all those sorts of things. And I was never really comfortable with those approaches to trauma resolution. And we can actually do content-free E.F.T. In other words, we don't have to delve into their psyche in order to help them develop all of the benefits. And so whether we have short-term therapy or long-term therapy, or whether they're students or anyone else, we find results with E.F.T. Now, you've had recently a great honor, and I noticed I didn't see you bring into the room a copy of your book.
Oh, yeah.
But you are you're a contributing author in a new book on E.F.T. that Jack Canfield wrote the forward to. Tell us a little bit about that book and that project, because I think it's great. You are recognized as a leader in this field, and that's real important. So what was your contribution in that book?
Well, the book is called E.F.T. for Everyone, and the main author is Jillian Morris. And I was approached by her about 2 years ago, I think it was. My main niche at that time, and to some extent even now still, is using it within the context of working with young adults, teens, those who are having difficulties with school and stuff related to school, including behavioral issues, things like that. And so she approached me to contribute a chapter to the book, which I did. I was happy to do so. And then I'm really in great company. There's the likes of Tanya Prince, who's an EFT master, and Brad Yates, and I highly recommend people to ever see him if he's ever in your town. Great guy, great stuff. So she gives an overview of the technique in the beginning of the book, and then all of us contributing authors each have our little niche as how it applies in our particular areas of expertise.
Sure, and that's certainly one of the books we would recommend you get. And throughout this course, we're going to make a lot of recommendations. Now, you said the book goes over a basic process, and we're going to actually do that. The cool thing about this course is that not only are John and I going to talk about EFT and how we can use it with our clients, but we want this to be interactive. And so you're going to have the chance to go through some basic processes as well. Before we do that, though, I just want to explore the whole idea of EFT a little bit more, because some people who are coming to this course have heard about EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and they've heard it can be useful, but they really don't have any idea what it is. So pretend you're giving me the elevator speech, and I simply say to you over dinner or something like that, so what exactly is EFT, John? How do you answer that?
The elevator speech version would be, well, do you know what acupuncture is?
I do know what acupuncture is.
It's emotional acupuncture without the needles.
Okay.
That's what we use. That's what we call the bridge
Sure.
to people who haven't seen it before. What's interesting though is you had mentioned earlier about your background in it, and early days, that's the target audience was therapists.
Right, exactly.
And that's all Gary Craig, who was the originator of the method. Those were primarily who his audience was, because they were those are the people who would have been more open to something that would get that kind of result. It wasn't until years later where it really started getting mainstream.
Where coaches began to use it.
Right.
Hypnotists began to use it. Business executives began to use it. You know, It was interesting. I was at a business leadership training seminar about 2 years ago, and I don't think that the leader of the seminar ever used the word EFT or Emotional Freedom Technique, but at some point the lady who was leading the training seminar simply said, okay, now I want everyone to put down your pencils for a minute, take in a breath, and she guided everyone through a basic process, applying it to leadership development. So we see it in all kinds of areas.
Right.
And why is it that you think EFT really crosses these boundaries from business to therapy to coaching and schoolwork to veterans and post-traumatic stress disorder, from the serious to the less serious?
Right. Especially with the vets and the PTSD.
Right.
There's actually been leaders of this field testifying before Congress as to the effectiveness of it for the vets, because sadly, very sadly, the VA doesn't offer a whole lot to them.
Right.
And the reason, in my opinion, it's as far-reaching as it is, as quickly as it has been, is because it works. And it's kind of just like acupuncture. It's been around 5,000 years. It wouldn't be if it didn't work.
Sure.
After a while, someone's going to catch on and say, well, this is,
Right.
and that's it. One of the main drivers for me in doing this course, other than getting it out there and sharing it with people and that they can use it with their clients and with themselves, is there's an abundance of material out there now. And those of you who might not have heard of EFT in particular might have heard of tapping.
Sure.
Okay, it's referred to that way as well.
Tapping therapy or
Yeah,
tapping
tapping
technique or
Right.
emotional freedom technique and lots of different
Exactly.
names.
And the thing is, there's a lot of variations out there now. And I'm not going to get into the politics of that. Most of the variations do the job. Most of the variations are very effective. But to me, if you want to be able to look at advanced stuff at some point, to look at other variations and be able to see with a critical eye what could be effective and what isn't, you really need the basic groundwork and the fundamentals. And that's what we're going to focus on here.
Absolutely.
Now, keep in mind, when you hear the word fundamental, these fundamentals are powerful stuff. Okay, the fundamentals are going to get you massive results in your work, when you're working with a client, whether you're working on yourself. So don't let the word fundamental throw you.
Sometimes people say, well, I'm only learning a fundamental level. I want to be at the elite level of performance. But
Right.
with our clients, a fundamental level can change their life.
Correct.
And that's powerful.
Exactly. And the technique is, not only is it effective, it's simple. And that's where the power of it is. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. You'll have people like me who will see it originally and say, really? You got to be kidding. You have to lay on a couch for years and say, you know, well, how do you feel about your mom? You know, and things like that.
Right.
But
they tap a few times and their mom is awesome.
Mom is awesome, or mom was still okay. It was still what she was, but whatever.
Right, exactly.
And you'll see as we go through it, and as I explain concepts as we go through, you're not erasing memories.
Sure.
Using this, what you're doing is you're just taking any negative emotional charges out of it.
Right.
It's a big difference. People will still remember an incident, but it'll have the emotional charge of, say, broccoli.
And this is really
broccoli.
This is very important because one of the calls I get as a hypnotist on a regular basis is, hello, this is Richard the hypnotist. Yes, I broke up with my girlfriend or boyfriend, or I've had some traumatic experience in life, and I want you to hypnotize me to forget it or forget them. And of course, I have to explain to them that even if I could do that, it wouldn't necessarily be ethical.
Okay.
The issue is not that we can make the bad things that happened to us not a part of our life anymore, but that we can put some space in it. Sure. And so what we see with EFT is really the same concept that we see with Buddhism 5,000 years ago, the idea of mindfulness. And the idea of mindfulness is to put some space between me and either my thoughts or my sensations, or my physical feelings.
Right.
Right? And the idea in neuro-linguistic programming, and I know many of you who are taking this course who have a hypnosis background, also have an NLP background, so we can move into perceptual positions. The first perceptual position is me as me in the middle of an experience. The second is me outside of me, observing me. And a more distant or an even safer place is another me observing me, watching me in the trauma or the experience. So a first, second, and third perceptual position. And so whether we're talking about mindfulness meditation, whether we're talking about neuro-linguistic programming, or whether we're talking about hypnotherapy that focuses on helping a person to create resource states in the present and break emotional attachments to previous traumas, EFT is really along the same lines. It's another way of putting some space between me and either, again, thoughts, sensations, or physical feelings.
Well, yeah, and it's actually a really good point you bring up about NLP, because a lot of people don't realize Gary Craig was a master NLP practitioner.
Gary Craig is probably the most well-known person teaching EFT. He's probably credited as being the founder of EFT, or at least at the current incarnation. We go back 5,000 years.
Well, right, exactly.
But in Western American, teaching and thought. Tell me a little bit about that history, about Gary Craig, about how EFT came about, because I think that's important for us to understand really what the foundations are.
Well, Gary Craig is actually, his background is in engineering. He was a Stanford engineer. And he was all about self-improvement, things like that. And he was involved in studying something called TFT, thought field therapy, right, by Dr. Roger Callahan. And legend has it that Dr. Callahan came up with that because he had a client who had an issue with water. She had a fear of water, I believe it was. And a couple of years of therapy were going by and really no results were going on. So one day she showed up for therapy and said something about her stomach bothering her. She had a nauseous stomach pain. And he had just recently taken a course about meridian acupuncture points, things like that, and which points correspond to which organs. And just out of the fly, he decided to give it a shot. Hey, why don't you just tap on this certain point? And her stomach pain went away. Now, what was interesting was when the stomach pain went away, so did the fear of water. And that's when he started saying, oh, there might be something here. Right. And there's a lot, for those who are watching who are in the therapy field, you guys know there's always a mind-body connection. Right. So he distilled how to come up with protocols to take care of different things relating to different organs, and the organs relating to different emotions and things like that.
Sure.
So one of his premier students was Gary Craig. And Gary Craig was looking at that. Now, TFT really relies a lot on muscle testing.
Right.
And coming up with the proper sequence,
Right.
proper algorithm is what they call it, to deal with an issue. And Gary Craig looked at that and said, well, and it works. It does work. And it's still around. He goes, well, what if, instead of doing all this, I just hit them all?
Right.
And just did a complete overhaul. And whatever ones were stable, and whatever ones needed adjustment would be adjusted
Right.
in one protocol. And we wouldn't need all the muscle testing, which he had at the beginning still.
Sure.
But eventually he phased out because he really didn't need it, because you're doing a whole overhaul.
And the cool thing is the EFT experience, we can do an hour and a half session. Okay? And we can do a 5-minute session.
Right.
And that's what's really cool about it, is the idea of we'll go through a complete process. We don't miss anything. We adjust what needs to be adjusted.
Right.
What's stable is stable. And this really goes back almost, people see EFT as something different than hypnosis. And I tend to see everything, maybe it's my worldview, but I tend to see everything as hypnosis. And so Milton Erickson's idea was that the subconscious mind is infinitely knowledgeable, and it has a knowledge of what it needs. And in hypnosis, in trance, when we allow the subconscious mind to do its work, it will be the best caretaker of us. And EFT, without mentioning Milton Erickson, really subscribes to that idea that we'll touch every point, and in doing so, we will intuitively adjust that which needs to be adjusted.
Right. And so what it really does, it just took a body of knowledge and just completely simplified it. And when you asked earlier about one of the reasons it has such explosive growth, that's one. That's a main one. And for those who are working with clients, say, when I'm working with young adults, males especially, who don't want to tell you what's going on.
Right.
Right. Beauty of this kind of technique is I don't never need to know. And that'll make more sense as we go through the training.
It's okay to have knowledge and to have a client who's sharing everything with us.
Which would be helpful.
And it's perfectly okay if we have that 15-year-old adolescent who says, I got a problem, but I'm not telling you.
I'm not telling you.
And by the way, because you're in the school environment and because I used to work in probation departments, sometimes it is smart for, in his case, a student, or in my case, a probationer or an inmate, to not tell the person in authority what the issue is. Okay? They can actually get in more trouble when they do share what the issue is. They can become unsafe in peer situations. They can have legal consequences to maybe some of the decisions or actions they've taken in the past, but they have to deal with that now. And so it may actually be smart for a person to say, hey, I'm looking for a content-free way to find relief, because they know what the need is, but they can't share the details with us.
Right. Or in a lot of my cases, they just won't.
Right.
And it's a really quick rapport builder when you say, that's fine, you don't have to. Now all of a sudden walls start coming down. And you mean you don't need to know? No, you know, right? You know what's bothering you? Yeah, okay. Now, often case, what happens is once we're tapping with that for a little while, the walls are down, and then all of a sudden they'll start, and everything comes out. But initially, it's a great leverage when you say, I don't even need to know it, as long as you do. Powerful.
Now, there are 12 videos in this series.
Yeah.
Each one, we don't know how long it'll be, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 7 minutes. Probably on average about 20 minutes
About
a piece.
that, right.
Some are shorter, some are longer. And the reason why we've broken it up into 12 modules like this is because we both know that the way we watch internet education is different than the way we watch a television.
Right.
Okay, and so you can come back to these videos really in any. I mean, we'd like you to go through them 1 through 12.
Right, initially at least.
But
yes.
you can go back to them, to the parts and the components that are important to you. And so in this video, we spent some time sort of overviewing those things. They're two more things that I want to do here in the beginning, and then we'll get into the specifics and actually begin to demonstrate some things.
Right.
First, let's make kind of a list of specific types of clients who you've had results with and who I've had results with. So those who are viewing the video can really get an idea of what type of client can benefit from EFT. Now, I also want you to just guide me through a quick process so that those who are viewing right now can be an observer. Okay. So if I were a friend or a client or a student and I only had a couple of minutes, what would that process look like? What could you teach me in 3 to 5 minutes? Okay. And the reason why is, again, I want you to be an observer because you might never have actually seen an EFT session. We'll be doing longer sessions later on,
right,
and complete processes later on.
Right.
But I want you to be able to see it in action. So
okay,
probably the three people who I can think of who have benefited most. One was a person who had a fear of needles. She came into my office for hypnosis. The problem is that she didn't know she had a fear of needles until she went to the laboratory and the phlebotomist went to draw blood and the husband had to restrain her and she became combative and they refused treatment and the physician said, I don't know what to do, go see the witch doctor, so he referred him to me and she was rescheduled for her appointment tomorrow. And so, yes, I did a traditional hypnosis session, but I also went through a very short, probably 5-minute EFT process with her. And the reason why I did is, again, a fear of needles is a very kinesthetic right, experience, and this is what I love about EFT. Hypnotists know that I can use creative visualization with my visual learners. Hypnotists know I can use flowery, lofty, hypnotic suggestions with my auditory learners because I like to hear these suggestions. But hypnotists are often stumped with what do I do with the person whose primary representational system is kinesthetic. And we can use EFT as an induction, we can use EFT as a suggestion, we can use it in waking hypnosis, and it's a great tool for the kinesthetic learner. And that's exactly who this particular client was. So I did use it with the medical fear of phobias. I have used EFT with a number of different clients simply to help them manage and control stress, feelings of being out of control. And I've used EFT as well with some of my clients. Remember, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and although I don't do marriage counseling, I've always worked with addicts in the context of family therapy, because addiction occurs within that family system.
Right.
But people have a lot of relationship traumas.
Right.
And guess what? The partner who's the object of their hurt may or may not be present, may or may not be invested. And EFT is something that I can utilize with a person who's experiencing relationship trauma to take control over their own life.
Right. Right.
Because really, a lot of people come to counseling and they want this to fix somebody else in the relationship, and EFT is a way of helping them control themselves. And so it makes really a great metaphor for what the goals of the rest of the counseling process might be. And also my addicted clients. Obviously, I came to this field originally as a drug and alcohol counselor, working in a drug and alcohol counseling treatment center. I mean, that was back in the late 1980s. Last time I had a drink, James Brady was Ronald Reagan's press secretary. It was March 31st of 1988, and I found myself working in a drug and alcohol treatment program 6 months later. I lied, told him I had a year of sobriety, and I got the job. and so I've worked with drug and alcohol, and of course as a hypnotist I work with a lot of nicotine addicts, and I have found that EFT is a great tool for helping my clients to overcome the physical feeling or the fear of withdrawal that they might be experiencing. So those are some of the clients who I've had success with.
Right. Now, piggybacking on that, in terms of physical, one of the real strong suits of EFT is when you go after something physical and you're able to collapse the emotional driver behind it. And I'll give a quick example. I was working with a client who had some back issues, back pains a lot. And we started tapping on that directly and chase the pain, that kind of stuff will again make more sense when you get more into the training. And we had some results, but not a lot. So at some point I said, well, how do you know you're still experiencing what does it feel like? And I wanted a descriptor at that point. So, well, it's in the lower back. Okay, but is it sharp? Is it dull? Tell me about it. So she got more detailed. Then I said, what color is it? Well, it's dark. Okay. Everything's always dark. Well, what do you mean everything's always dark? Well, I've been depressed since I was a kid. And this woman was in her late 50s, I think, at the time. So I said, oh, well, what does depression look like to you? And she makes this big description. It's a dark cloud. Okay. So we tapped on the dark cloud. Then it became a gray cloud. Then it became a white cloud. Then there were no clouds.
Wow.
Right? Now, as we're going through that, you can see her physiology shift.
Sure.
Right? Now, here's the kicker. Okay, now, once we cleared that, I feel really relaxed, at peace, probably for the first time in my life. She's crying a little bit. I'm feeling like, yeah, it's nice. Now, let's go back to that back pain. Could you describe it for me now? What back pain? I don't have back pain.
Right.
What? No, you came for back. We've been working on back pain. She goes, no, I don't really have back pain. I don't have anything right now.
Right.
Now, mind you, she was at a point where she couldn't sit in some chairs.
Sure.
Because of the way the back would be positioned. And it was gone. So that mind-body connection is no matter what kind of client you're dealing with, weight loss, smoking. I've had the privilege of learning how to work with smoking clients with hypnosis with your stuff. And we have that interesting story about how we got to know each other. And basically me just taking his training and one thing led to another and we're sitting here. So you never know. But the key there, it hits that mind-body connection like something I've never seen before.
Sure.
And whether it's something as deep as that or test anxiety, that I deal a lot with that. And I've seen other methods out there. I've seen hypnosis even for that. But nothing gets to it as quickly and as elegantly as the E.F.T does. And I've had students, just because of the anxiety, couldn't get past a do or die exam. And in the state of Florida, we have do or die exams for seniors to get their diploma. Sure. If they don't pass the state exam, they don't get the diploma or an equivalent. And when I look at a student's information and I see data dropping down, especially like say on a reading test, right? They don't forget how to read. Obviously, there's something else involved, and usually it's an anxiety issue. I've had, and I think my record is a 12-point swing on the ACT.
Right.
Just because we tapped on the anxiety.
Yep.
And got the test anxiety out of the way. So, again, it's deceptively simple. I mean, Gary Craig used to say, I could teach a 7-year-old to go do this, and they could pull somebody over in the mall and do the basic mechanics and get an 80% hit rate.
Right.
Just on the mechanics.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing about it. It's just, I have learned, people are always out there looking for the complex training, the one that is at the deepest level, the one that's the furthest out there.
Right.
And I see sort of some gurus offering some trainings in some very weird, esoteric areas for high dollars. And I think that appeals to the person who wants to spend $5,000 for that exclusive training to learn the technique.
Right.
And what I found is it's the simplest things that actually work the best.
Yeah.
In hypnosis, I know all the complex inductions. In fact, I wrote a book on hypnotic induction. Mm-hmm. And yet, 90% of the time, I use some form of progressive muscle relaxation coupled with autogenic training. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it works.
Right.
It works for most.
Mm-hmm.
It's non-threatening.
Right.
And it's highly effective. So my clients are not paying me to impress them with my skill level.
Right.
They're paying me to help them find a solution. All right, so I flew here to Florida from the West Coast, which is far away.
Yes, it is.
And I did it on a late night flight with a 3-hour time change. So, we're recording this at about 4 o'clock in the morning for me. And so I'm a little fatigued, I'm a little jet lagged. And so the question is, can you guide me through a basic process of EFT here for my issues? And then you can see, because he said a couple of things interesting. He said, when I'm tapping on their anxiety, when I'm tapping on their back pain, we're not literally tapping on their back. We're not literally tapping on their
That's right.
on their anxiety. So what is going on? So if you've never actually seen the basic process of EFT, now's your chance.
Right. And let me pre-frame this with what you're going to see at this moment is a shortcut. Okay? Because the challenge was 3 to 5 minutes. So you're going to see a shortcut. And as he said, you're going to then get into the fundamental mechanics and how to do it.
We'll go through the whole session, the whole process. But again, just so you can have a visual of what's going on.
Down and dirty shortcut. So for someone in this situation, so the first thing I'm going to ask you is, okay, how do you know you're jet lagged? What does it feel like?
Well, they told me I would be jet lagged because of a 3-hour time change.
Okay, well, are you jet lagged, I guess is the question then.
I feel it's weird to describe, but there's just this sensation of the circadian rhythms being wrong. It's too light, too early, or something like that.
Okay, so you have a physical sensation that something's off?
Yeah, it's not a loss of equilibrium like I'm going to fall or balance, but I have this internal sense of not being balanced, of a loss of equilibrium.
Okay. If you had to guess where in the body that might be located, where could that be? Down here?
Yep.
Okay. So if you focused in on that right now, you can get in touch with it?
Yeah.
Okay. On a 0 to 10, 0 meaning nothing, 10 meaning we're probably going to pull you out of that ceiling.
Okay.
Where would it be on that scale?
7.
About a 7.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just take that as a shortcut.
Okay.
Okay. So is there a color to it?
Maybe gray.
Mid-gray? Okay. Is it a heavy feeling, light feeling?
Yeah, it's a heavy feeling.
It's a heavy feeling. Okay. And it's down.
Yeah, it's almost a split feeling. It's almost a yin-yang.
Okay. Okay. So if you had to use a descriptor for it, a very short descriptor for it, what would you call it?
Imbalanced.
Okay. This heavy imbalance would be something accurate?
Right. Very accurate.
Okay. So we would tap on the side of the hand here. Okay. And say, even though I have this heavy imbalance,
I have this heavy imbalance,
I accept myself anyway.
I accept myself anyway.
Even though as I tap, I'm going to tune in to this heavy imbalance. I accept it. And I accept myself. As I am. Okay. Now, top of the head.
Okay.
This heavy imbalance. Okay. On the eyebrow here. This heavy imbalance. Side of the eye. This heavy imbalance. Under. This heavy imbalance. Under the nose.
This heavy imbalance.
Chin. Heavy imbalance.
This heavy imbalance.
Collarbone. Heavy imbalance. And right under the arm here.
This heavy imbalance.
Okay. Time to take a deep breath. Down. Now go back and check what's different.
Well, as soon as I exhaled that breath, I remember I said I almost made a motion like there's a split or dichotomy, the yin yang, and I felt that sort of gray side just sort of wash into the white side. Just that sharp edge to it sort of just became unimportant.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that would be an appropriate hypnotic suggestion for jet lag, which is the time becomes unimportant.
Right. Yeah.
3 o'clock is 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock is 9 o'clock. Just like what I tell people in hypnotic suggestion for jet lag is, we know that time is not real because China is as long as the USA and only has one time zone. Right?
Is it?
Yeah, they just decided that it should be the same time everywhere. So, and it works.
Uh-huh.
Well, that tells me that time isn't really real.
It's just an agreement.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And And my dichotomy is because I've been adhering to that agreement. The reality is I still slept 8 hours, even if it was at the wrong 8 hours.
Right. Well, right.
Right.
And you said something actually that was a bit of a tell. And it was half joking, but half jokes even have a driver. Well, they said I'm supposed to have jet lag.
Right.
Now, what I would take from that actually is what we were dealing with was a belief here.
Right.
Really. But without getting all meshed out, we just did the shortcut.
Right.
And you'll see, we'll deal with shortcuts and stuff as we get further along.
Sure.
But basically, there's a cybernetic loop, yeah? Right? So this affects this, and we know that. Right? We know that if you see that special someone across the room, you're like, right? And the butterflies in here and everything.
So that's what happens to me.
That's what happens, right? So I've been lucky. I've been getting that to happen for 26 years.
Limerence.
So this affects this, and we know that. But now the question is, could this affect this?
Right.
Right? So when we use something like I did here and have you focus in on the physicality of it, I'm using the cybernetic loop in reverse.
Right.
And you wanted 3 to 5 minutes. That's the fastest way to do 3 to 5 minutes.
Sure.
I could sit here and dig in and say, well, what do you believe about circadian rhythms? Really? I mean, you just want relief and you want it yesterday.
Right.
I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm all about that, right?
By the way, if we're talking too fast for you, he's from Brooklyn, I'm from Chicago. So
There we go. That's why.
there you go.
So for our southern friends, we apologize. That was speaking so fast.
We will eat a chicken fried steak or something at
Yes.
lunch so we can have empathy with
That's
you.
right. So matching and mirroring, right? We should be, right? But so by tapping just on the physical sensations of that, whatever the kicker driver was, I hit it that way.
Right.
Okay. And this is actually the way I'll use it with test anxiety a lot of the times, at least initially.
Yeah, because you got a kid who says, hey, this test is coming up in an hour.
That's right.
Wow, we need this. Now, and again, I wanted you to do that process, not because that process in and of itself will solve all issues, but I wanted you to have a visual to see what it looks like to guide somebody through a very basic, simple process that can have efficacy. So
Right.
as we get into the other videos here, we're going to build on all of these things that we've talked about so that when we're done with the 12 videos, you'll have the confidence to know that you can really help a lot of different people at a lot of different levels with EFT.